shows for oh so long. Every summer in your favorite bar, we're determined to keep going strong. Nothing in the world can stop our song.
So whether you have season tickets or small show with friends,
We have the info and the scoop on all the latest trends. Gather around, we won't be a bore. We promise to have you coming back for more. In the meantime, we'll say what we need.
Welcome to the second episode of In the Meantime with John Saunders. I'm John Saunders, and this is In the Meantime, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. This week, we're sitting down with Lizzie McGuire and Rob Brinkmann. Lizzie was last year's choreographer for Camelot, and Rob Brinkmann was Judd in last year's production of Oklahoma. We had an amazing conversation, and I am just in awe of how busy they're both staying during quarantine. I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. I had a blast doing it. Remember, if you donate to the Bright Future Fund and mention Lizzie and Rob, 50% of that donation will go to them as an honorarium so they can continue to do these incredible projects that they're both staying busy with. Thank you so much. And without further ado, here is my interview with Lizzie and Rob. Good morning. I'm talking today to Lizzie McGuire and Rob Brinkmann, who are down in New York City, I believe. Is that where you guys are quarantining?
Yes.
What part of the city are you guys in?
We live in West Harlem. We're right near Columbia University. So really nice. Kind of a better spot.
How long have you been up there?
5 years. And I've lived in the neighborhood for like 10.
Okay. So you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
It's nice to get to be able to walk out our front door and see the river and the escape. And so it kind of feels like we get a little fresh air.
Yeah, you're right on the water there. That's nice.
Yeah.
I live just up the block, like 20 blocks north of you, right on the river, which is so nice. It kind of feels like, I like it because I can see Jersey, which is my motherland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
How did you guys meet?
One fateful night.
Oh.
So my really good friend from college, Sarah Naughton, turned out to be her best friend from childhood.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so after we had both graduated, Lizzie moved down to the city, and Sarah was hosting a birthday party down in the Lower East Side
at like the diviest best bar ever. And there was a leopard print pool table. Mm-hmm. And Rob had been stalking me on Facebook.
Well.
And he came and he told Sarah, introduce me to your friend. And I overheard him say that. And I was like, hello.
So you're a stalker. So
I'm a stalker, yes.
The stash is telling us the story we want to hear.
This is a very accurate depiction of my psyche.
Yeah.
It worked out for me, though.
Did he have the stash when he was stalking you?
No, he was a sweet. We look like children now when we look back at it.
Like he was salamander.
No, you did not. You looked great.
Thanks.
He had a turtle necklace and a flannel and a big smile. And we played pool, and the rest is history.
And we recently got married, correct?
Yeah.
We are wed.
Yes.
We are wed.
Yes.
We got wed in September, right before the world slowed to a halt.
Yeah.
I know, right before we went on pause. Someone pretty familiar to Mac-Haydn Theatre audiences played a kind of a big role in that. Now, tell me, professionally, have your paths ever crossed?
I've owned and co-artistic directed an immersive dance theater company for like 9 years.
Yeah.
And we do all the weird. We create immersive, interactive performance with dance and theater in non-proscenium spaces. So like nightclubs and galleries and outdoors and wherever is crazy. And we have this show that we've been doing for like 9 years called Acoustica Electronica. And Rob's been in that. I actually rigged him to a harness, and he had to fly in that one.
Yes.
At this club called the House of Yes. So I torture him a lot. I also made him learn how to stilt walk for another gig, and he's really good at it.
What do you guys kind of admire most about each other professionally? Rob, what would you say you admire most?
Easy.
It really is truly an easy question. It's her ability to storytell without words. I mean, like my bread and butter is using words to express people and, their subtext and what they're going through. And she has a truly remarkable ability to tell a narrative story through movement. which is why I think every actor should train in movement to some degree, because the way she can access a story, the same script that I'm looking at, and have a totally different way of approaching how to express what's going on. Because we'll talk about scenes. We used to stay up late and talk about her show for hours and hours into the night, and the way that her brain sees like subtext in bodies is something that is really hard to describe. But I mean, you've worked with her and you've seen it.
Yeah.
Seen her work with people, which is the second part of it. She can bring out beautiful movement in anybody. Someone who has touted themselves as not a dancer, she could be in a room with for 20 minutes and make them do something that is very honest and is very true. And so I think one of your greatest skills is bringing out just that best movement quality in anybody.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's so nice.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Man, my heart is all aflutter.
Thanks, Rob. Interview over. You guys take care of yourself.
Yeah, see you guys later.
Lizzie, your turn. What about Rob?
All right. It's hard to narrow it down, but
Sure.
I guess what I would say, what I admire, and I have such a talent crush on Rob.
Okay.
Anytime he approaches a creative project, he becomes consumed with it. And he doesn't let himself stop until he feels like he's really mastered it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, with Judd, like, and this has happened for so many, in every single show he's done, but every time he gets a character, he's played roles like Judd, and he's played Black Stash in Peter and the Starcatchers. He's played such a huge range, and every time he gets a new role, it's the same thing. He does so much research, and then he just spends so much time just tirelessly with the script and creating that character. And his natural ability to have like a really strong handle on the core of being a human, that's kind of an epic thing to say, but he really has that emotional social intelligence that even if a character killed somebody like Judd or didn't or whatever, but even like somebody so different than him, he can attach himself to that person's like soul,
Right.
and then play it brilliantly. Like, to watch him become a new role just every single time blows me away. And it's kind of creepy sometimes because he plays villains really well.
He does.
And he's like the nicest person I've ever met. So it's pretty crazy. So I admire just the utter genius, but also that work ethic. They just meet, and then you get this insane performance.
Shucks.
That's really nice. But I have to tell you, I agree. How did you hear about us? What was your path to coming to work for us like?
So I've had my eye on the Mac for a long time because of Spastiani.
Sure.
And I've been hearing about his productions there, and he told me all about you and the crew and how fun it is. And a few years ago, I started realizing, okay, I want to start freelance choreographing for theater, besides making my own shows, which is like a whole different kind of work. And so I was talking to Spastiani, and he's like, you might be a really good fit for the Mac because it's not a traditional proscenium.
What was your first impression of the space, Lizzie, when you did finally walk in and see it?
I remember that very specifically. I have like a video memory of it. I walked in and it was March, and so you guys were either like in the process of...
You came early.
I came early to see it, and it was still had some of its winter garb on. And I remember walking in the space with James and you and Monica, and I was like blown away because it almost felt like this random carnival tent I've made stuff in called the Spiegel tent. It almost felt like a carnival tent. It almost felt like that round, not quite symmetrical magic. And I think with that, when it's not just stage and then audience and big barrier in between, there's something magic there that feels like a little more alive. And so even though it was all boarded up and there were covers on the seats, I immediately felt so excited. And also the space doesn't look like a lot of contemporary architecture in theaters is really harsh.
Right.
And this has those wooden beams and interesting varying roof and ceiling heights and like all this kind of unique stuff. So it was a theater I had never seen before, and I just love it. I think it
is a very, very, very odd space, you know. And it's funny because a lot of times we don't have somebody who's never worked here before do the first show so that they can come and see something first.
Yeah.
That's why I think we probably tortured you into coming up in March, because I'm like, you got to see this place. Otherwise, you're going to get here and be like, what? Without being able to see something run in there, you know? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you just did such a good job putting Camelot in there. And and then suddenly Camelot was a smash and you had a great time and you fell in love with the Mac-Haydn.
I did.
Now we're never letting you go. And and then later in the summer, we ran into a situation where this role of Judd in Oklahoma was open. And then somehow we got on to Rob.
Yeah, I think I reached out to James. I had heard through the grapevine what was going on, and I figured Rob was really interested. He always said he loves Oklahoma. The whole summer, every time I talked about the season, he was like, I love Oklahoma, I love Judd. And so when I heard that, we connected you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one taped audition later.
Yeah, and then we put you on tape, and you were amazing. And it was so nice because you did really fit in so well into how I saw him. But what about you, Rob? What was your first impression of the place?
I mean, I had heard, from the beginning of the summer when she came home, I hadn't seen her that inspired, and probably never inspired in the way that she was, having done immersive theater for so long, and to then jump into like a physical theatrical space that has a stage, but it's still immersive in that way. Yeah. I was ready to jump into Oklahoma. Like I was thrilled. Having done a few immersive shows with her, I remembered that feeling of being in a 360-degree performance space, and I was really excited about it. There was also the fact that our wedding was the next month, and so there was, I won't lie, a little bit of hesitation where I had to check in, and we had a lot of chats about, is this going to work? Is it going to be all right?
And I was like, go for it.
And
you were, because that was pretty crazy. I mean, it was like, you're getting married in 5 minutes, and now you're going to do this show.
Yeah.
That's how we roll, right?
Yeah. But I got to grow my beard out really long, which is something I'd always loved doing. As soon as I got into space and met the whole team, getting to meet the whole ensemble that has been there all summer and had like created such incredible bonds. Like they welcomed me with open arms. You all welcomed me with open arms. And I think we had a really, really, really good time.
Yeah, and I think what are your thoughts on the show itself that we did? I think it was a really good production of Oklahoma.
I absolutely agree. I mean, the fact that like Judd is a role that has been on my bucket list for years, but I always assumed I wouldn't get to approach it for a little while longer because I appear on a little bit the younger side. Yeah. But I think the way that we approached Curly and Lori and our relationships in the town and in the way that I think one of my favorite things in the way that I digested the character and the way that you presented the piece to be portrayed is how this insular community affected individual people and put them in a pressure position to make decisions that effectively destroyed their lives or created their new circumstances. Right. And to be able to really explore Judd under your direction in a way where he is a product of this world and this sort of frontier town was liberating. I mean, I loved working with you. It was really thrilling that first rehearsal, getting in, and when you were blocking the scene, and I was learning about the numbers and the sides, and and that was when that was my first moment where I knew to really trust you, because that kind of staging, it certainly feels awkward, but as soon as we ran it a few times and began to live in it, it felt more natural and realistic than a proscenium style production.
And obviously, Rob, congratulations! You went on to win the Berkshire Theater Critics Award.
I did, which was so thrilling. It really was thrilling, man.
Wild.
To all of us, seriously. And
Honestly.
all your wins that summer.
Oh my God. Well, I definitely accepted for you. I made the acceptance seats.
Right here. We keep
Is it in view all the time?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Oh, look at that. Good.
I love it.
A really a beautiful, a thing to remember, a really remarkable experience.
And all the things that I wished for turn out like I want them to be. And I'm better than that smart aleck Calvin who thinks he's better than me. And the girl that I want ain't afraid of my arms. She comes to the wall, and her long tangled hair falls across my face, just like the rain in a storm.
One of the things I know we started with was the fight sequence, and Lizzie in Camelot too, you did some fight sequences, and then we did the big one in Oklahoma as well, and we kind of started with that because it really was a long sequence.
Yeah.
Longest fight I've done the pillow. I've done shows where I get beat up for like a whole act, and that was the single longest continuous fight sequence that I've ever done on stage.
It was long. It was like the first thing I wanted to do.
It was so hot. It was awesome.
Because I was like, I want this fight to be like 2 hours long. But that would have made Oklahoma 5 hours. So I was like, we better keep it to 30 minutes.
Well, what I love the way that you approached the fight sequence was the reality and the breath and the exhaustion of two men who are not fighters by nature, fighting each other, and how physically exhausting that is.
Yeah, and it really definitely freaked the audience out because it was really choreographed within an inch of its life, but also really violent, Yeah. And Lizzie, in Camelot, you did some fight choreography as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there was quite a bit of it.
There's a lot of physicality in our Camelot. I think James and I really wanted to bring out toxic masculinity. I'm using that phrase.
That's okay.
Because the archetypes of a king and a queen and the knights and society and societal pressure and all that, it just created so many opportunities, not only for realistic fighting, for kind of stylized, funny fighting, like in C'est Moi, and then some real violence towards the end. And then it inspired a lot of my choreography right from the get-go, of having uber masculine, sharp angles and low to the ground plieing movement that just shows men that are at any moment in the world of Camelot ready to fight to the death.
Right.
Like a pin, something changes, politics change, and then immediately they're gonna go kill Guinevere.
Right.
It's crazy.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. And I've seen a lot of Camelots, and I thought your movement was just amazing, and it was so good.
Thank you.
So good. Now, that was your first musical.
That was my first musical.
Isn't that wild?
Great,
it was the best.
Well, and it looked like you've been doing it for years.
Well, thank you.
I have been doing it for years.
I've been doing strange stories for years. What's really cool about choreographing for theater is that instead of having to make your own story and the choreography, you're taking a story and then making it your own. And so it alleviates a lot of stress, I found. And I just was able to think about, with James, what was serving our story the most for every single movement. And then with every single movement, every single blocking and stage direction and how it felt in the space.
Sure.
And so that was just such a gift.
All right. So moving into Chatham and how you were supposed to be here this year, you were supposed to be here to do Pippin and Rock of Ages.
Oh, yeah.
But don't worry, because it'll be here next year.
Yep.
Rob, we weren't sure what you were doing here because you were totes biz.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Chatham itself. Is there anywhere or anything that you guys will miss in Chatham proper this summer?
ODB, yeah.
ODB.
Ah.
Are you kidding me? That food, the bread is so fresh and the food is so good.
Our daily bread.
Oh gosh.
Our daily bread is sort of like it's like our mothership.
It's so good.
They are so good to us. They give us our dinners on Saturdays.
Yeah.
We spend so much time down there. You know, they're open now and you can call and order. They'll have everything outside waiting for you. They're selling some groceries. Like they've adapted beautifully to the situation. So they're still going for it, you know. But yeah, our daily bread is just the best. Best. All right, you guys. So part 2 of this is in the meantime, let's talk about what you guys are doing. So, Lizzie, we're going to start with you.
My company is called Touch Performance Art, and we started in 2011. I met my business partner, Marissa, in college. She was getting her master's in musical theater, and then we were in a drag show together. And
Fabulous.
So we met. Yep. And then
That's how Rob and I met.
Yeah.
Right. That's
What was that, back in 2005?
Yes.
Right.
And we started this company with the mission of breaking the boundary between audience and performer. So our whole goal is about finding new ways to interact with audiences when you're creating a show. And we use all kinds of different styles of art. We obviously, dance is the main language, but theater dance, because all of our dance, like you, I am not really interested in making dance for dance.
Right.
We were interested in making storytelling through movement. And that marriage happened easily, and it started to include circus almost right away. And so we started working with aerialists and clowns, and I became a clown, which is true. And we realized there's a whole other medium out there that's equally powerful of storytelling. It's like doing choreography in the sky. It's so awesome. When I started choreographing for aerialists, I was like, there's this whole other level. We incorporate circus, dance, and theater. We have this show called Acoustica Electronica. It's crazy. It's like a surrealist piece set to electronic dance music that's married with classical music. So the whole point is that we're basically tricking people who don't care about art to think that they're going to come have like a dance party at a club, but instead they are locked in for this whole show. Drew inspiration from arts history. So Carmen is in it, and there's a conductor character, there's a ballerina, there's Pierrot Lunaire, this Commedia dell'arte Italian character that we created as a female that I play. And so, we wanted to find a way to show people that don't see performing arts that it's really cool and very engaging. We've made 3 fully produced shows now, but Acoustica is definitely our baby because we're still running her. We've performed, I guess she's a she now. Yeah. She's a she. We performed her in residence at American Repertory Theater at Harvard. Right. So Diane Paulus and like her whole crew were huge mentors for us. We were their resident for 3 years, and they just kind of mentored us on creating our new shows, working on Acoustica, and we've performed at Oberon probably at least 50 times.
Wow.
Oberon's their club theater space.
Yep. And you were supposed to be there this summer, right?
Yeah, we had to cancel shows.
Yeah. Because
immersive theater in a nightclub is probably the worst theater you can do.
Like nothing sounds more dangerous. Yeah.
For a contagion.
But that's okay. It's going to be okay.
I know also right now you're doing some teaching. Tell me about your teaching.
Yeah. So this last year, I started working for a company called Broadway Bound Kids. And their mission is to bring arts education all over the city, especially to underprivileged communities, and then also like every community is included. So we do after school programming at several schools, and then there are also residencies run by the Department of Education that we're a part of that are 9 times out of 10 like free for their students. So I've been choreographing Annie Jr. virtually,
Love it.
which is so fun, and kind of co-directing that at a Harlem middle school called Hamilton Grange that I'm like madly in love with all my kids. And then I have a Arthur Miller residency at this middle school in the Bronx, and I'm working with a really brilliant theater teacher there, and we're creating devised theater with our kids. And actually the kids decided on the theme, and the theme is coronavirus happened and now we're back and we all have superpowers. Superpowers happened during coronavirus. And so we're writing a musical about
Fingers
that.
crossed, this is still going to happen in real life.
I mean, I'm on the beats for that one. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, a word from our president. Paul Colarusso, quarantining in New York City, is here to answer our questions. Hey, Paul. Today's interview, we talk a lot about dancing, and I know that you too were once a dancer growing up here at the Mac-Haydn Theatre. What do you think is the most important thing that a dancer needs?
Flexibility.
And you sure got it. And that was a word from our president. Thank you, Paulie. So after your Berkshire Theatre Award-winning performance of Judd, you got married, and then you skedaddled back to New York City, where you just casually booked what?
So Stomp. I've been in the New York City cast of Stomp since a week after I got married.
Unbelievable.
So it was pretty.
They called us on our wedding day.
It was truly the most, like, from the beginning of Oklahoma until my opening night of Stomp is probably the craziest 2 months of my entire life.
Yes, definitely.
Going from the end of Oklahoma and having a week to prep the rest of the wedding, having the wedding. On the night of the wedding, I got a call from the producer. So the next morning, where I'm still a little hey, making a waffle the day after my wedding, I had a voicemail. They're like, hey, can you come in? We need a replacement track. Can you come in a couple days for Stop? Which was crazy. And so we were supposed to spend about a week up in Vermont after our wedding, and we went and spent 2 days.
Oh my God.
Just enough time to sober up and get an hour of sleep. And then we drove back at 4 a.m. on a Thursday. It was a quick 1 hour call. They were learning new pieces. And so the creators, Luke Cresswell and Steve Nicholas, were there. And so I ripped in there. There was like 10 people. We did like a down and dirty workshop. And then they called me. Was it that night?
That night.
It was that night. They called me. They're like, okay, we start rehearsals on Monday.
Wow, man. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Going back just a little bit, though, isn't it amazing? And I think a lot of people don't realize how many times artists, actors, dancers, how much we will literally sacrifice. We will give up. You gave up a honeymoon to go get this gig.
Got it.
How many holidays and I think a lot of people don't realize, I had Christmas dinner in a Jack in the Box in Costa Mesa, California one year. Christmas dinner.
This was
at a Jack in the Box.
I performed on Christmas this year. It was the first year that I've ever been that way.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people don't realize that people that our lives and our schedules can change on a dime, you know?
Yeah.
And there you were hungover eating Eggos, and suddenly you're like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go be on Broadway and Stomp. I heard you were addicted to the rhythms. You were tapping on everything and anything.
To the rhythms. It is now my life. It is now you don't go back from that.
Stomp is crazy.
Well,
Lizzie, did you like buy stock in Excedrin at that point? Or what?
Yeah. Well, I really felt bad for him because the normal rehearsal process for Stomp when they onboard people is like 12 weeks. And this was an emergency situation, so he had half the time. And he was like learning. I'm not going to do this well, but if it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is his counts, which is like, it's not even close to that simple. It's crazy how he hears things.
Yeah.
He was rehearsing without cast, so he was imagining what the other sounds would be.
Oh God.
And so like,
dude, my brain.
it was so hard. He still taps a lot. Like he's like, all of a sudden he'll be going to the kitchen. He'll be like, and sometimes now that I know he knows the show, he doesn't need to practice. I'll be like, Rob, can you go? Like I'm reading a book. I'm like, can you go to the other room?
Do you ever just like pound rhythms out on Lizzie?
Oh,
Every
all
second.
the time. A pitter-pattering as often as I'm allowed to. Sorry.
It's true.
All right, so when you're not stomping, let's talk about your voiceover work. I think I was shocked last year to learn this. I didn't know this, but you do books on tape.
I do, yeah. You would have laughed. I actually brought all my recording. I had a book on top of everything during Oklahoma. I was supposed to be finishing a book as well.
I remember.
So I brought all my stuff to try and do it there, but it was just crazy because I do audiobook narrations under my own name, and also I have a pseudonym for my romance genre.
No.
Yes.
No, I need you to answer the rest of this question in that voice, please.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, going on.
I read under the pseudonym Robert Hatchett for the more exotic type of books out there. So I built a booth.
Go on.
You okay? Yeah, I've been working with this author, Dakota Davies. She's got this.
I heart Robert Hatchett.
I know, Robert. Hot.
How did you break into this?
So I took some classes on voiceover a few years ago, and then Sarah Naughton, the same friend who introduced Lizzie and I, and who's still a major part in our lives, she does this pretty much as a full-time gig. She's got hundreds of titles under her belt, and she's been my mentor over the years. And another friend of mine from work was doing it, and they're like, just do it. Like, go home and just commit to it for a week and see what happens. And so my first book I recorded with this very mic, with no insulation, just on my desk, and it probably took me 30 hours to make a 2-hour book. Wow. And now I've got like a really good. The way they do it, they talk about it in the industry is per finished hour. So if you read it, if you listen to an audiobook, if it's like 5 hours, the artist gets paid per finished hour of audio. And you try to, let's say for a 5-hour book, it might take me like 12 hours, 15 hours to record. So it takes me about 2.5 hours to make a finished hour. Wow. And that's because of like, all the weird sounds that you hear, like someone shutting we're on the first floor. So every time someone shuts the elevator door, I hear this little guggle. And so that can drive you crazy. Can drive a person crazy. So now I've just upgraded my booth. It's very new. It's very fancy. I feel really fortunate that it's like I've been able to keep busy and to work in this time in a way where I'm home and I'm like still being creative. I still get to act in a way. Yeah. So it's a good side gig. Yeah. Well, I just think it's awesome too, and you do have a really good speaking voice. Like I would listen to it. I would listen to you read me a story. Oh, well, thanks. I'll read you a story. Definitely reading me a story is Robert Hatchett. I'll read.
Well, I'm gonna send you some of the things. God. Sorry, but I am.
Send me. What are you eating?
Good. We're doing good home cooked food, but sometimes I'm eating a lot of bread. And this chocolate cake Rob makes.
Copious amounts of eggs. Copious amounts of eggs. Yeah. Like big breakfasts and a big smoothie. What are you wearing? Terrible. Like sweatpants and workout clothes every day, all day. Yeah. I like to pretend I'm living on the islands. Day in my life.
So I know you're obviously together, because that's usually the third question. Who are you quarantining with? But what have you guys learned about each other during quarantine?
I learned that Lizzie really wanted a dog.
And guess what?
We bought a
That one?
dog, John.
You did?
We bought a dog!
I want a dog too.
He's
Where's
coming.
that?
Baby,
That's our baby.
When is it coming?
June 26th.
Oh my God. What kind of dog is that?
His mom's a Pomeranian and his dad is a poodle.
You need to start texting me pictures of that dog. I need a friend. I'm
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Hard.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
But if I just could have somebody just stare at me in this house, just stare at me for like a little while and just like sit down and watch Law and Order with me. What do you miss the most?
I think for me, it's being in person with the people I love or the people I'm working with. So the Mac was a big loss for me. So I really like, especially knowing that Pippin would be going on.
I know.
I was thinking a lot about that, but then also just like going to a restaurant with our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob?
I miss performing. I had just gotten used to my first job where I was performing 6 days a week, and all of a sudden, not anymore. So
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It's weird. I like it. Yeah. I miss it.
It's always people. It's hard for us because our whole life is gathering.
Yeah.
Because so much of our social life comes out of our work life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a
And,
lot of people with jobs out there that don't socialize with the people they work with, where it's kind of the opposite for us. I mean, we socialize, work together. We do kind of everything together. To the people up here and to the people from the Mac-Haydn and the amazing volunteers and the coffee house people, is there any kind of words of wisdom you can give them while we're hanging on, waiting till next year?
I guess, I mean, it's so thinking about all those people and those faces
Yeah.
makes my heart beat. But maybe what we can imagine is that next year we're going to come back like so inspired and ready and thankful. Like we'll be really grateful to be with each other. So maybe next year will just be like the best yet.
Yeah.
And so we just got to hang on for that.
Yeah.
You know?
And take a night, open up a bottle of wine and listen to a whole musical. Listen to a whole musical score. We've done that a couple times and it is like, it's refreshing, it's inspiring to like listen to the music again and to feel like you're having an experience. So when you're down in the dumps and you need some theater, just listen to it.
I can't explain any of these thoughts racing through my brain. It's true. Baby, I'm howling for you. Alright. There's something wrong with this plot. The actors here have not got a clue. Baby, I'm howling for you.
And there you have it, the second episode of In the Meantime with John Saunders. Special thanks to Lizzie McGuire and Rob Brinkmann for taking time out of their busy day to chat with us about what they've been up to. Remember, if you donate to the Bright Future Fund today and mention Lizzie and Rob, we will make sure that half of that dough gets to them as an honorarium so they can continue their incredibly creative projects and keep them going. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay hopeful, and we'll see you next time.